What's up my loves, my name is Paige, this is Paige with Paige, and today we're going to be doing an original tag that is the Pokemon Gen title tag. So essentially the way that this tag has been created, it is an original tag created by Ash and I. So this tag essentially has two elements to it. So we have prompts for every single title in every generation of the Pokemon games that are currently out. We also have prompts for the generations themselves. So if you just wanted to do those 8 generations plus an extra little one, or the 20 generation names, you can do that, or you can mix and match. So if you look at red, green, and the questions for red and green and you find that you can't really think of anything for it, and you look at the generation 1 question and prefer to do that instead, then you just implement that and say, this is a Gen 1 question, here's this, and then continue on with yellow and then go into gold and silver and crystal and so on and so forth. For anyone that is new and doesn't really know the Pokemon games, each game has its own little theme. So we start off with red, green, and then deviate into yellow. Yellow is a special game, so it sort of introduced a few different elements to it and is considered like a bonus for the Gen 1 generation. So I've included that yellow is a blanket across both of the things. So what I'm going to do is say, this is Gen 1's question, I'm not going to give an answer for it, and then go into each of them. The questions will be in a Google Doc down below, so you can go and have a look at them. You don't have to do all of them, you can pick and choose. If you just want to do like the first 3 generations of questions, that is fine. But I figured I'd give as many options as we could and make it a fun little tag. So yeah, let's dive on in. So Generation 1 is a book that gives you a sense of nostalgia. And the actual game questions are red, a book that started it all. So, you know, a favourite read that got you into reading, and obviously we're going to go with Matilda by Roald Dahl. Would it be a recommendation video if I didn't include this? No? Okay, moving on. Second is green, which is a book that you were naturally drawn to. So I'm going with Orphea by Joanne M. Harris. I saw this in the bookstore and was instantly drawn to it. It is beautiful. It also has natural elements, but you don't need to necessarily focus on that. And the illustrations in it are stunning. Now for yellow, which is across both sets of questions, and that is an underhyped book, because I feel like yellow is really underrated and more love needs to be given to it. For that one, I'm going with My Brother's Husband by Gengoro Tagami, and this is a manga that follows a family in Tokyo that is Yaichi and his daughter Kana, and they are visited by Yaichi's brother's husband who moved to Canada and met this guy Mike. So unfortunately the brother, I believe, had passed away, and it was looking at Japanese gay culture and how the family sort of adapt to this big lovable personality that is Mike, and just the acceptance. And it is really underrated, but I think it is fantastic. There are only 2 volumes, and I need to get my hands on the second volume because I adored this first one. Then we have Generation 2, which is a book that didn't suffer from second book syndrome. So I feel like occasionally we will have the second book in a series be not that great, but for Ash and I, Gold, Silver and Crystal did not slip. It was still fantastic. So, into the Gen 2 questions. For Gold, we want you to recommend a book that is a predominantly gold foiled cover, and I'm going with The Betrayals by Bridget Collins. This is actually Ash's copy and he has read it, I have not, but that foiling on the front cover, I don't think the camera picks it up as well, but it is stunning. And yeah, so it's predominantly that gold foiling, and I love this cover. I think it's stunning. Next up we have Silver, which is a book that has a silver lining, and I realized after making this prompt, I really struggled. I don't think I remember a lot of books that have that sort of silver lining that end that a dark thing that has that little bit of light to it, because I'm just too in my feels to remember it. But then I did remember Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. This is the 3rd book in the series, and for me, the way that this ended absolutely broke me into 1,000 pieces. But because I know that there is the next series following these characters, I was like, okay, my world isn't completely over. It hurts, but we still get to be with them, and that is my silver lining. That didn't mean I was wallowing in a pit of despair for 1,000 years. And for Crystal, we want you to give us an eye-opening book, so one that made things crystal clear. And for me, I'm going with Bonk by Mary Roach. So this is about the curious coupling of science and sex. So it follows through different scientific experiments that were based around sex, the science behind different sexual things. The titles for each of the contents is fucking hilarious. So, The Sausage, the Porcupine, and the Agreeable Mrs. G. Highlights from the pioneers of human sexual response. The Princess and Her Pea. The woman who moved her clitoris, and other ruminations on intercourse orgasms. And yeah, they're just great. So I found this really interesting, and it was presented in a way that made the science easy to understand. It wasn't a complicated read, and yeah, so this is my answer for that one. And then for Generation 3, we have a top tier book. And so for me, Gen 3 was when I jumped into the Pokemon games. I was like early teens and just really loved these games. So I want you to recommend me a top tier book. For the actual questions for the games themselves, for Ruby, we want you to recommend a dystopian. So there was lots of earthquakes and volcanoes and disruptive things. And so the book that I'm going to recommend is City of Ember. I can't actually remember who the author is, but it will be on the screen. This is a book that I absolutely adored after watching the movie with Saoirse Ronan. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. But yeah, I adored this, and I ended up binge reading the entire series because I just thought they were fantastic. So this is my not so commonly known dystopian recommendation. Number 9 is Sapphire. So we want you to recommend a book that features water in some way. And this was very similar to the Not Safe for Workathon prompt. Yes, I am drawing parallels. Come at me, bros. But we've decided to go with Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. So we've got salt on the cover. This is set on an island by the sea. There is a lot of water elements to it, and it is glorious. So this is sort of magical realism, and there's a lot of different elements. It's dealing with a hard-hitting topic, and I adored this. I think it was fantastic, and yeah. And then we have Emerald. So that is a book that features sky or space in some way or another. And so I've decided to go with Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. So this is set in space, and it has the word sky in the title. So love that for us. This is following Spence as she tries to become a pilot. However, her father is deemed a coward, so it makes it very challenging for her to get into this flight school. I think it was really fast-paced, really engaging. On to Gem 4, and we have Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. And so for that, we want you to recommend us a book that is dual perspective. The game questions themselves is Diamond, a book that was hard to get through, and so recently, if you have been following this channel, you will know this was an experience. It was not fun to get through. I was struggling and then went into a reading slump for 2 days, so love that for us. But this was definitely hard to get to, and no, I do not recommend. If this is your first time here, welcome. So for the prompt of Pearl, we want you to recommend a book that is a hidden gem. And so I've gone with Arithmetist by Brandon Sanderson. This, I think, is quite underrated in the Sandy Sands works. Everyone knows Elantris, they know The Final Empire, they know Way of Kings. Not many people talk about The Arithmetist, and I thought it was a really fascinating middle grade. So I would highly recommend this. I think if you want something that's a little bit different but still in Sanderson's world of awesome magic systems, definitely give this one a try, and I think it's definitely a hidden gem in his catalogue of work. Next up we have Platinum, and so I want you to recommend a book that features music in some way. Now, I cannot for the life of me remember a book that has music as a main element to it. I know that I have read it that features it. They're like, they'll be in a band or something. I just thought of one that I have read. Never mind. But I'm going for one that I haven't read, and that is The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. I know that this is following Mozart's sister, and she has a gift for music, but obviously her brother is the one that's going to be remembered, and yeah, I'm very curious to get to it. I know that it features music quite predominantly, but I thought I would chuck this one on in. On On to Gem 5, and that is black and white. And so for this one, we want you to recommend a book that has a black and white cover. For the games, for black, we want you to recommend a book that has an important message in it. And I'm going with Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. I read this recently and holy dooly, this was a fantastic middle grade YA, right teetering on that age range, following Gem as they live in a place where monsters have been eradicated. There's no such thing. However, Gem brings a thing into Lucille and realizes that maybe monsters still do exist. This is featuring a black trans main character, and it is looking at so many different elements that just resonates so hard. It is fantastic, and there are a lot of different important messages in it. The protagonist is also selectively mute, so there was an interesting exploration in that, and the use of sign, and just fantastic. So important for any, I'd say maybe like 12 up, and yeah, definitely would recommend this. And for white, we want a light and fluffy read, and so I'm recommending The Seance Tea Party by Ramina Yi. This is following Laura, who doesn't want to grow up. There's no fun in it, and she befriends a ghost when she's having a bit of a hard time because her friends are all moving on and growing up, and she sort of feels a little bit left behind. And it's a really wonderful exploration of the fear of growing up, the fear of moving on, and I just highly would recommend this. Leading on to Generation 6, so we have X and Y, and so I think for me, X and Y definitely brought back my love of Pokemon. I sort of fell off the bandwagon for Diamond and Pearl, Black and White. I wasn't captivated by it, but when X and Y came out, holy lord, there was like a resurgence of people just being like, yes. And so we want you to recommend a book that has rekindled your love of a series. For the actual questions, for X, we want a book that features pirates because X marks the spot, and I've gone with The Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. Obviously, I think that's 2 Robin Hobbs. That's fine. I adore this. The pirates in it are fantastic. They're not your usual conventional pirates, and I just love it. Hobb knows how to write characters, she knows how to write amazing settings, and everything about this is glorious, and I am so happy that this exists in the world and it features pirates. For Y, we want you to recommend a book that made you ask questions, and so why? For me, I am recommending Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I had a lot of questions, I got very angry, I felt the justice system is severely broken, and why this is the case, I cannot tell you. I can't tell you, but anyway, regardless. I feel like this is such a powerful read, and it definitely looks at the experiences and gets your mind thinking on a lot of different things, and it's so crucial to be asking these questions as well. On to Gen 7, we have Sun and Moon, and so for that, I want you to recommend a book that is a successful cover change. For Sun, I want you to recommend a book that brightens your day, and I'm going with The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. If this did not brighten your day, I don't know what will. It is wholesome, it is beautiful, it makes you question all the things, it makes me cry, it makes me happy, it's just glorious. The characters themselves are just such cinema rolls that I just need them all to exist and for me to be able to hold them because they are near and dear to my heart. For Moon, I want you to recommend a book that kept you up late at night, and for me, funnily enough, it was Oh My Gods by Alexandra Shepherd. So I read this recently and I just ended up staying up until 2 AM just flying through the end of it because it was so much fun, I was having a blast and I didn't want to put it down. So a bit of a random one, but very happy that I stayed up late and finished it because it was just a good time. And finally, Gen 8, we have Sword and Shield, and so for number 8, we want you to recommend an overhyped book. I feel like Sword and Shield just got pushed a little too hard and it might have flopped just a little, but please don't come at me. For Sword, I want you to recommend a book that you could use as a weapon. Think of that how you will. I've gone the Physical Brute Strength Force, and I've gone with Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Holy dooly, this is a brick. You could injure someone quite easily with this. Wouldn't recommend, but if you needed a weapon, this is one I'd pick up. It's also a fantastic LGBT fantasy standalone that just captivated my attention, and I thought it would be so challenging to get through because it's 800 and something pages, but I ended up absolutely flying through it and fell in love with it. And finally, the last question for this tag. I am so proud. I've done this in under 25 minutes. For Shield, we want you to recommend a book that you use for support. So that could be getting you through a hard time, it could be improving your life in some way, anything, how you want to take it, go for it. I've gone with Atomic Habits by James Clear. This really helps support me get my mind into a better mentality about developing habits. Have I put it all into practice? No. Will I? No. Am I taking different things from it as I need to? Yes. Is that supporting me in getting my life back on track? Yes. So this is what we're going with. I really enjoyed the way that James laid out his theories and did the development of ideas in a digestible and really clear manner. It just made sense. It was like, okay, this, I can understand all of your arguments, the things that you're putting forth, the techniques I should be using, and it's just implementing them. That's the problem. But we'll get there eventually. But I hope you have enjoyed this tag. Feel free to add another question of who do you want to tag. I'm not going to tag anyone because I'm not sure who's a fan of Pokemon, but I will be putting it on my Twitter. And if you want to be tagged, consider yourself tagged. I will, if you message me, I will put your name in the description saying I have tagged you. More than happy to do that. Let me know in the comments your yellow book. What is an underhyped book that you absolutely love and feels doesn't get enough love and attention on the bookish sphere? If you like this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more of this mess, feel free to subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!